most listing agents will say, don't replace the flooring because no matter what you put down, the person who buys it likely will not like it. Welcome to Real Estate for Real People. My name is Brad. This is my fantastic wife and business partner, Marianne. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what you need to do if you want to successfully list your home and some of the do's and don'ts and how that's going to help you capitalize and make more money when you sell. And I think the most important thing to realize is that some of these things we'll talk about don't make your home more valuable. They just make it more sellable. Okay? So if your house already has a roof and you need a new one, you don't get to add $30,000 to the price of your house if you spend $30,000 on a new roof because you were supposed to have one that works anyways, right?
And by the way, if you're spending $30,000 on a roof, call us. We have somebody that will do it much cheaper.
Or else you have a humongous house.
Or you have a humongous house.
One or the other.
In either way, feel free to give us a call.
That's right.
I digress.
Okay, so going to prep your home. So we've got some common tasks that so when we drive up, so we've been talking about this as we drive down the road. Mm-hmm. And one of the comments you've made in the past was, I look at homes so differently now, just driving down the road. And, you're looking at the condition of the roof, what the siding looks like, the yard, the driveway, the Hulk cars in the driveway, couches on the front porch. And then you drive by some places and it looks like the landscaper's just been there, but it's that way all the time. Mm-hmm. So these things all matter, and they all tend to create the value proposition when the buyer drives up.
Yep.
So we'll talk about those pros and cons today. So first thing, we're going to go inside the house. We're going to talk about decluttering and deep cleaning. Ooh. So you are the queen of systems and minimalizationist tendencies. So talk to me about decluttering.
So from experience, we moved from an almost 6,000 square foot home down into about a 2,000 square foot space. And so one of the things, obviously, all of that stuff that we had before is not going to fit in our current situation. Not only that, there was a couch surfing session between point A and point B of owning homes. So minimalizing things does a couple of things for your home and for yourself, in all honesty. At some point, having less in your home makes it feel bigger. One of the processes that I went through when we were getting ready for our house, to sell our house, I went through every cupboard, every drawer, every closet, and looked at each item in those spaces and decided, do I know where it came from? Does it bring me joy? Am I going to use it really in the near future? And if the answer was no...
And have you used it in the last 6 months?
And have I used it in... Yes, thank you. And have I used it in the last year? I actually gave myself a year. Okay. If the answer was no to any of those things, then it found a new home. Whether that was Facebook Marketplace, whether that was a resale space or store downtown. Some things went to Goodwill, some things went to Community House, different organizations that could use those things. So not only did it benefit us in reducing our stuff, but hopefully benefited some other people out in the community. Mm-hmm. So that can feel super overwhelming. So if you have an idea, if you're even thinking about selling, or if you just want to feel lighter in life, I would encourage you to take a room a day, if you can. If that's too much, a room a week, maybe a closet a day, and go through it and really be brutal with that process of minimizing the things. One of the groups that I work a lot with right now is aging adults. So folks who are downsizing, folks who are looking at maybe assisted living in the future, those kinds of things. If that is an area or a group that you are a part of, my encouragement to you would be start talking to your family members about items, historical items from the family or antiques or things that are important to you that you want to make sure have a good home. This is the time when you get to have some authority and control in making those decisions. And I have seen too many cases where life happens and that control for a variety of reasons disappears. And so you don't get to gift people things that you really want them to have. So that's a big piece, but I think all of it is really important. And when you do get to the place that you're moving, the time that you're moving, that makes, putting things in boxes and labeling them much easier, much easier. The other thing I would say to that is if you really already have an active date that you are going to sell by, start doing that piece now. And just, let's say you haven't had pictures taken yet, start doing that process. Put the things you know you're going to take with you in the garage, label it, and don't bring them back in the house after the pictures. Just they are ready to move. So that's one less thing you have to take care of.
Yeah, so I think there's three pieces to this puzzle, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got the hidden stuff that you're talking about, like closets and that kind of stuff. But when you're getting ready to sell your home, you're going to have a professional photographer come in.
True.
Hopefully your agent is going to have a professional photographer come in. And just as a side note, if your agent shows up with their iPhone to do photos, stop that process immediately and ask them to hire a professional, because you've got one chance to make a first impression. Most of our consumers nowadays are online looking at their homes, the potential homes that are out there. And what's happening is you have, I think the number is like 1.5 seconds to catch their eye, to make them want to stop and click on your listing and look through it. Mm-hmm. So if that first picture isn't amazing and it doesn't capture them and say, hey, open me up, look at me, they're just going to go right by, right? You're just going to get swiped left on, and that's a problem, right? If you're trying to attract eyeballs. Yep. So you've got the closets and the bedrooms, you've got the exterior, but the other piece of the interior is all the stuff that people do see that could be cluttered, like your kitchen counters and your bookcases and your game room and the garage or the basement. There are rooms. Everybody's got a room in their house that is kind of the dumping ground, right? So it's got all the Christmas stuff in it from anywhere from 1 to 5 years ago. It's got every piece of camping gear that you haven't put away from last summer.
And just to be clear, you're not talking about the garage.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about rooms in the house, right? So anyway, please remember that when nobody needs to have their house look like a museum.
For pictures, that's nice.
Right. Right, but doesn't have to have everything in place. No. You don't have to buy brand new stuff.
True.
All the time, right? Mm-hmm. But minimalize your counters, almost as if you walk into like an Airbnb, right? And there's just a couple of things on the counters for you to use. Have your kitchen and have your bathrooms look like that, because you want the buyer to come in and you want the photographer to be able to come in so that they can take pictures, or the buyers can look and think, I can see myself here. And if you've got 15 shampoo bottles and razors on the sink and all this stuff rolling around your bathroom, people come in and they go, ooh, human gunk, yuck, right? So we don't want people thinking, ooh, human gunk,
no,
right? Is that a toenail? You don't want any of that stuff. So please declutter your living spaces as well, not just the closets and the stuff that's hidden, but the stuff that everybody is going to see all the time, right?
Yeah. I think the other thing to add on to that is that if you can depersonalize the space a little bit, take down, for a couple of reasons, like Brad said, you want people to walk into this house that you're selling, and you want them to be able to see themselves there, to see their family pictures on the wall in their mind's eye. And it just is one more thing that allows them to kind of put themselves in that space. The other thing that we've experienced is that oftentimes personal pictures on the wall will bring back tough memories or circumstances for other families looking at the home. We had a client who had recently lost a child, and so there were pictures of little kids all over the wall, and that was really, really difficult. So they just emotionally couldn't put themselves in that space because there was that memory, that emotion that went with it. So, yeah, you just never know who's coming in your home when it is for sale, and taking a look. Just so keep those things in mind. The other piece that I would say, and this is not necessarily for photos or things like that, but please consider when you are getting your house ready to sell, what are you going to do with the valuables in your home? If you have jewelry, if you have things that are precious to you that you don't want to have any option for somebody to take or touch or those kinds of things, make sure that they are in a safe place. Along with that, during showings, people are going to be in the bathrooms and such. So if you have medications, please have a plan either to take those with you or put them in a locked container or closet or whatever, but just some things to be aware of as you are getting ready to sell.
Yeah, every once in a while you get the odd nefarious person that will show up, and they're maybe there at an open house. And we call them cabinet cruisers, and they'll be looking through your medicine cabinets for anything that they can steal and sell or steal and use. So
it's unfortunate, but that's kind of the world we live in.
yeah, so a good listing agent should explain to you why you'd want to hide your jewelry, why you'd want to hide your medications. We actually sold a home once, and there was a lot of sports memorabilia downstairs. And I mean, like hockey jerseys in glass cases and stuff. So, and some of these things, my question to him was, the photographer's going to get all this? And he goes, yeah, I don't want anybody knowing I got that hockey jersey. So that came off the wall, so that it wasn't in the pictures, and he just put it in his private collection, and away it went. So, I mean, it's important that we monitor that kind of stuff and just kind of overcome the objection before it actually happens. Right. You know what I mean? So now if we're going to clean up the inside, we should also clean up the outside.
It'd be a good idea.
Yeah. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take a very honest look at what's going on the outside of your house. You might see things like algae, moss, or mold on your siding. You might see big chunks of green moss that your local florist would love to have.
Hanging off of the gutters, maybe.
Right, yeah, plants growing out of the gutters, right? I mean, just bird nests places, bee nests places. So take the time to walk around your property, and don't just look down, look up. Because we've had home inspectors stung by bees because there were wasps. We've found attics. We actually bought a house that had an attic that had holes getting into it, and there was like a 3-foot round circle of bat guano up in the attic because the bats had gotten in. And those things can fit through a small, like dime-size hole. Mice and bats can get in through itty-bitty holes.
Yep.
So it doesn't take much for the friendly outdoor woodland creatures to show up inside your house and make a mess.
They want a warm, safe place to be too. So,
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
It just makes sense.
First thing we're going to talk about is pressure washing the exterior, right?
Well, let's go back to that just for a second.
Yeah.
If I would also encourage you not just to do that yourself, because sometimes we tend to have kind of a blind eye. You know how you walk in a room and there's a box that's been sitting in that corner forever, and you've seen it so many times you really don't see it anymore. Same situation with your house outside. I would encourage you to have somebody that can walk the house with you and maybe point things out to you or ask you questions about certain things, so you really have an idea of what needs to be addressed on the outside of your home.
And this is really where a trusted listing agent is going to come in handy, because they're going to let you know about the things that actually matter. And again, we're back to this whole concept of, it doesn't necessarily make it more valuable, it just makes it more sellable.
So when you say the things that matter, what does that mean?
Well, you may think that picking up all the pine cones in the grass is important. And
Because it looks messy.
because it looks messy. And most of the time an agent will not necessarily worry about pine cones in the grass, but he's going to worry about all the cracked caulk at the corners of your home and around your siding, and your HVAC unit outside looks like it's the monster from the Black Lagoon, or it's green and just a mess. So there's cracks in the sidewalk, right? All these things outside that we normally just kind of turn that blind eye to.
Rickety railings
All
on
that
a
kind of
staircase.
stuff, right? There are certain loans that require hand railings, and there are certain loans that require vapor barrier underneath the home. So there's things that need to really be paid attention to maximize the number of people that you could sell your home to as well, right? Because you don't want to box out one specific lending group because you don't want to spend $1,000 and put vapor barrier in your crawl space, because you immediately wipe out all government loans if you don't have that, right? So we don't want to necessarily do that. So anyways, so we want to pressure wash the outside, and that's not only the walls and all the cobwebs up in the corners, but your siding and your decks, your walkways. Nothing says buy my house more than when a potential buyer slips on your mossy deck and hits the deck. Usually a bad time.
Start.
Yeah, a bad start. Most people will never recover from that one and want to buy that house.
Sure.
So we have to be careful about keeping our house safe. So just make sure that you do that. Now, you can have companies come in and do this, just like you can have a company come in and clean your house, right?
Inside, deep
right,
clean.
inside. If you get it to the point where it's decluttered and you just don't have the emotional capacity or the physical strength to get in there and do the cleaning
Or time.
then hire somebody, right? I mean, we've had some deep cleans take $700 or $800 because it was 3 people for 3 days cleaning the inside of that house. And we've had other people walk in and it's just a couple $100 to have somebody come in and fresh things up and make sure that everything is, kind of all the gunk and the crumbs and everything are gone. And really, we just need to have most of this stuff done for the pictures, because you're going to start living in that house again as soon as the pictures are done. But we want it looking sharp.
Well,
for
and
those
I would
photos.
say not just for photos, but even beyond that, especially the exterior, once you get it taken care of, as people come to look at the house for showings, what that says to a potential buyer is somebody cares about this house enough to take care of it, to maintain it, to make sure that it's livable and safe. So that speaks to buyers heavily when they're looking at a home.
We call that curb appeal. So the kind of the inside baseball of buyers when they come to look at your home as a home for sale, they know what it's worth. I mean, they know your sales price because that's all disclosed. They are immediately putting minus signs in front of that price tag that you have it listed for, because they think, oh, well, look at this roof. This roof looks like it's not going to last very long. How much is a roof going to be? Minus 20 grand. oh, this house hasn't been painted in so long I can actually see the wood through the paint. That's maybe another 15 grand. So they're ding, ding, ding. They're coming down on that price that they're going to offer you. So if you want to maximize the price you're going to get, again, painting the outside of your house doesn't make it more valuable. It just makes it more sellable at top dollar.
Right.
Right? So you're never going to get top dollar in this market, not going to get top dollar. A couple of years ago, different story. But right now, top dollar means looks sharp, right? Detailed up top to bottom. So we want to spruce up the entryway because that is the first thing that people see. They drive up, and what does the front of your house say to them? Does it say, like you said, the Clampetts live here? Or does it say, the Kardashians live here? We want to make...
Or somewhere
in the middle, right? Yeah, somewhere in the middle. So we want to make sure that we are freshening things up. Couple of yards of bark. Mow the lawn. Please mow the lawn. Maybe have a professional come in and just clean up the front. You can also paint your front door, right? Doesn't take much. You can have a professional painter come in and paint it. But there are some tricks, right? So if you're selling your home in the middle of December, you can't necessarily just whip your door off and take it to the paint shop. So, there are issues with, how the logistics of how to do these things. But if you know that you're going to sell your house, paint your door in the summer or fall if you're going to get it, if you're thinking, oh, we should put our home on this winter. And I'm going to segue real quick or go this way. For the people who think that you should never have your home on during the holidays, I'm going to say that's erroneous thinking. The people who want to buy will shop in the summer. Everybody loves to tire kick for DIY ideas.
Yeah. Summer and fall.
Summer and fall. Nobody wants to go look for homes when the weather's bad. But the people who are looking for homes when the weather's bad, they have to buy. It's not want to buy, it's a need. They're moving into town. They're trying to get there for the start of school in January. It's a job transfer. It's moving in for family. It's something that's...
Family's growing.
Right. It's not an option for them. So those buyers tend to be very serious, and they're going to grab the first thing that meets their needs and is in their price point. So all of the the higher end homes that we've sold, most of them have sat all summer and then they've sold in the fall or the winter. Don't be under that illusion that you shouldn't have your house on in the fall or the winter, because that's really when the bigger priced homes are going to sell best, because you just got a different buyer out at that point. Okay, so spruce up that front entryway. I'm going to segue back in now. You can do things that are not expensive, right? Go to Lowe's, Home Depot, get some flowers for the front deck, couple of hanging baskets, paint the door, maybe new light fixtures on the outside, something that isn't hanging off and looking like it's hanging by the black and the white wire,
Or looking like 1970 or 1990.
Or that, right? It doesn't take much.
It doesn't take much.
So anyways, and then as you are working around as a buyer, let's talk about this for just a second.
Okay.
The Ring doorbell. Okay? Just be aware as the buyer, when you're out with your buyer's agent, those Ring doorbells pick up sound and video. So if you are talking about the things that you are seeing and not seeing, things that you like and don't like,
yeah, exactly.
In front of that Ring doorbell, as most people do, you could run into some issues with the seller. Now, every state's a little different. So Washington State, you're not allowed to be recorded with sound without your knowledge. You can be video recorded without your knowledge, but you can't record sound. So it's not like it can be used in a court of law against you in the state of Washington specific, but it can certainly persuade the seller who has just been watching you live on their Ring doorbell trashing their house. So you got to be careful.
I also think, if I'm remembering correctly, there's actually a form in the Northwest MLS that sellers are supposed to fill out or have filled out that disclose that there are electronic and recording devices around the home.
Yeah, and there are some people that will hide stuff just because they want to hide stuff. You got nanny cams and that kind of stuff. It looks like a book, but it's really a camera. So you got to be careful when you're walking through homes. And you want to encourage you as the seller, you need to have a conversation with your listing agent if that is something that you feel is important to you for your safety, for your whatever. So the other thing we want to talk about as we get back to the outside of the house is trip hazards. Your home inspector is going to pick up any piece of uneven concrete and they're going to call it out as a trip hazard. We've had agents walking on the sidewalk talking with their client, and the tree roots have upended a piece of flat concrete, and they trip, and bad things happen when people fall on concrete. So please make sure that you're walking around your home with your agent, looking for that kind of stuff. Don't just look up, also look down, right? Because there are companies that can come in and lift concrete slabs for not a lot of money. I mean, we had that guy come in when we were doing our lift on our basement, which was much more intensive than normal. But he also went out front and lifted our slab that went into two of our garages. He lifted our stairs at the front door. And so, I mean, it's the technology out there.
Yeah.
You don't have to break concrete up and re-pour it just to make it level.
Could you do a lesser expensive piece by making sure that there's no edge, but there's almost like a ramp, not a ramp, but connecting the two pieces of concrete so there isn't a trip hazard. You can't catch your toe because there's some cement or whatever it's been put between the two pieces. I'm thinking that most people are probably not going to go out and get somebody to come in and level anything on their home like concrete walk or things like that. But I think there's probably some other less expensive things that can be done to make sure that trip hazard isn't there. Would that be accurate?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, there's a price point for everything. So a lot of it depends on the purchase price of your home, sales price of your home. And so, yeah, I mean, have a contractor come out and take a look at things. Easy enough. Because there are ways around pretty much everything. Sometimes it means just ripping stuff out. Sometimes it means just fixing what's there. And sometimes some people, for example, if your garage in your driveway or your concrete driveway is destroyed because it's been poured bad or was poured at the wrong time of year or whatever, there's just sometimes no change in that.
Right.
And so you got to focus on other places because that is a $20,000 expense, for example, that you're never going to get a penny back for it because a driveway is a driveway, right? So, okay. So clean and tidy the attic, the basement, and the garage. So the attic and the basement or the crawl space are two places that nobody wants to go. Nobody wants to go into the attic.
I'm not going
I mean, spiders, you never know, bats, squirrels, any kind of furry woodland creature.
Dead raccoons.
Yeah. So we got to be careful about ignoring those places because that's usually what we say is that's where the boogeymen hide.
Not literally.
Right.
Figuratively.
Right. Has nothing to do with the movie that's coming out right now. Anyway, so, you got to be careful about what you're doing there because and this is probably where the pre-inspection comes in that we'll talk about in just a minute. So you want the photographer typically isn't going to go in and photo your garage unless you have some kind of incredible garage that's got car lifts and fancy stuff.
Or if you move stuff out into a pod and your garage is relatively empty and it is a selling feature of the home, then they will probably do some photos of the garage.
Yeah, so you'll want to talk to your listing agent about that for sure because maybe it's important to photo the garage, maybe it's not. A lot of our clients, if it's just a 2-car garage on the front of a house, then a lot of people use that as a staging area for their stuff. Boxes piled to the ceiling to make the house feel more empty and inviting. So Okay. Warranties. So you got two things. You've got the individual warranties for the stuff that you buy, but then there's also a home warranty. So we just had a gal close on a new home, and you bought her.
I was the buyer's agent, and so I purchased a home warranty for her as a closing gift because that will help her cover anything that basically happens with the house in the next year. So failure of appliances, failure of plumbing, failure of furnace, heat pump, all those kinds of things. When you buy a house, if you haven't bought a house before, you put most of your money towards that purchase. It is the biggest asset that you will ever have. And so that first year especially, I mean, Murphy's Law, it was perfect when you moved in, and a week after you move in, it's going to bust a gut, and your dishwasher is going to be flooding the kitchen. I don't wish that on anybody, but if that happens, a home warranty is going to help take care of that along with your homeowner's insurance. So
it's important to remember that you have to look at who's in the house now versus who's moving into the house.
Right.
So you have a seasoned citizen couple with no kids, and there's two people living in there versus a family of five who's going to buy it and move in. That family of five is going to stress every system in that house, plumbing, electrical, everything, way harder than the two seasoned citizens would, right?
True.
So you just have to be aware of the use patterns. We have actually seen, and if you talk to the warranty companies, usually within 30 days of a new family moving in, major systems will malfunction because they've had a lot more stress on them, more of a load on them. Electrical, plumbing, whatever, right? All of a sudden the sewer line clogs. Well, why didn't it clog when it was just, grandma and grandpa? Well, because it was grandma and grandpa, not three kids and, multiple trips a day and blah, blah,
multiple
blah.
loads of laundry, how many showers and baths, you get the gist.
So it all makes a difference. So make sure that, please understand the load that your home is going to be taking and who was there before. It's why it's not bad to ask who is living there now and how many people are in the home, because you're not asking for names, social security numbers, that kind of stuff, but it's just good to know, right? So the home warranty is a great idea. We've done that for a lot of our buyers, if not all of them, because it's just some peace of mind, right?
Yeah. The other thing is that listing agents can actually do that for their sellers as well, and it can be a marketing piece for any buyer who buys the home. So, for example, if I buy a home warranty for my seller that includes a buyer portion, if things come up in the home, let's say as we're getting ready to list, let's say the hot water tank goes out, that will help the seller up to depending on the warranty, the one that I'm thinking of, it will help the seller with up to $2,000 in repairs before a buyer ever darkens the door. So
or during inspection.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
They are, in my estimation, very beneficial. I've never had a client upset that I purchased one for them. So let's go there.
But we have had some that have they've had $8,000 to $10,000 in bills rack up in that first year, and boy howdy were they excited that they had that policy to fall back on, because between that and homeowners insurance, it was a monster bill for them. So you'll find some people who are very colorful individuals in life and in paint. So you know who these people are because it looks like they've just smattered the walls with a parrot.
They
right?
opened the color crayon box in neon.
Yeah. So you got a red room, you got a green room, you got 3 shades of yellow, you got purple, you got stuff everywhere, right? And we actually walked into a home right up by the home you just sold on Sweet Birch. We were up in that area, and I was walking through a home, and there was actually a $3,000 paint allowance from the listing agent because he knew this thing was not going to sell the way it sold, because that lady had painted every room a specific color to match the furniture in that room. And whoo, wow, color is, yeah, she must have been from Miami because everything was kind of these super bright, just vibrant colors. And it was very tasteful, and it matched perfectly with her furniture. However, the chances
the furniture wasn't staying.
No, it was not. So yeah. So anyway, so there's a paint allowance on the inside for some people, and if you have crazy colors or you've done these really fun things in your kids' rooms, that's okay as well. But you may want to talk to your listing agent about, do we leave that and maybe appeal to the potential kids that come with that new buyer, or do we make everything kind of a blank slate,
a little more neutral.
A little more neutral, yeah. So you got to be careful about the colors you choose, just like you got to be careful about your flooring, right? Most listing agents will say, don't replace the flooring, because no matter what you put down, the person who buys it likely will not like it. They'll want laminate and you put down carpet. They'll want luxury vinyl plank and you put down laminate. They'll want hardwoods and you put down whatever, right? And it's the wrong color, the wrong grade, the wrong product. So if you need to have flooring done or paint done, you're smarter to just allow an allowance to the buyer instead of do the work. So anyway, so there's just little things. You gotta be careful with that paint thing, right? Because it'll bite you. And then on the outside, we're talking about paint. There again are some, like all the government loans, you're not allowed to have any peeling paint on the outside of your home, or you get a picky enough appraiser, they don't even want to see peeling paint on an outbuilding. So we had an appraisal fail because the garage that was built in maybe the 1600s, it looked like, here in America. So, that predates, it's old, right? And it's got all this peeling paint on the down low where the water had been splashing on because they didn't have gutters.
Honestly, it wasn't even a garage. It was an outbuilding
shed
shop.
shack thing. Yeah, it was. It had more value being pushed over and lit on fire. But it caused the appraisal to fail because there was peeling paint, and the appraiser said, I don't know if there's lead-based paint in that. And I can't tell, and if you haven't done a lab test on it, it needs to go. So you want to get frustrated, and you want to stall a sale. That's how you do that. You just ignore all the peeling paint. So if there's window trim or any kind of trim on the house, you got to get it painted. It doesn't even necessarily need to match. We have seen some people get...
Yes, it doesn't need to match.
Right.
But...
It's super nice if it does.
Well, it depends on if you're doing this before,
right.
during the inspection period.
Right.
Or,
yes.
right.
So
from curb appeal.
Oh, it definitely needs to match. But, there are some...
If it's a remedy during the transaction,
right.
then
you just need to get it done to get the loan to close.
Yes.
Yeah, but then there's going to be conversation back and forth between the buyer and the seller and their agents to figure out, is it okay that our house looks like the polka dot door, right? Most of the time, most people say, no, I'd like it to match. So anyways, just be aware as a seller, exterior paint is often the thing. If you've ever walked into a house and you've seen this blinds closed, curtains closed, dark, dingy, you've got to get those drapes open. You got to get those blinds lifted. You need to let the natural light in because everything looks better with natural light.
Including pictures, by the way.
Right. The photographer may want to tone down some of that light coming in the windows, but it's always nice to have it feeling bright and airy when people are walking through because it makes very small spaces feel larger. It's why most places you'll see a skylight on an interior bathroom that's small because that light makes it feel bigger even though it's not. So there is definitely some things that we need to watch out for as you're getting your home ready to list. Sunshine, one of them.
And also, this is not sunshine, but it's light related. As you're going through your home and you're getting it ready for pictures, please make sure that all the light bulbs are the same K value. If you have some really white lights and some warm lights, cameras pick up on that, and it looked really wonky. It doesn't show your home off to the best of its potential.
Right. So the new LED bulbs, they're measured in K or Kelvin. So you've got the 2700, which is the soft, almost pink light, and then you go 3000, and then you get like the sunlight bulbs or 5000, right? And those can be very garish, very stark. They're great for people who have seasonal affective disorder, but they're really not great to show off your house. So if you want to soften the light bulbs, and then there's some light bulbs where they'll antique the outside of the glass and make them almost turn kind of a brown or an amber color, right? So just make sure, like Marianne said, make sure that your light bulbs match. You don't want a 2700 and a 3000 and a 5000. It is, yeah, because it just looks weird. And if you can have the softer light, it's easier on the eyes.
And most of the time, our eyes don't pick it up. We don't pay attention to that necessarily as humans, but a camera really does.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so one of the things that we've started doing is we've gotten in with one of our clients who was an appraiser, and we've asked her to start doing a desktop appraisal for us to establish value.
Especially on a home that if it's more of a one-off, it's unusual, it has some unusual characteristics about it, and the other pieces, if we're not as familiar with an area as would benefit our client, then getting a desktop appraisal is really, really helpful because it gives you, as an agent, a starting point, a better starting point than necessarily doing a CMA.
Yeah, so we're in the middle of a transaction right now where we got this listing from a referral. And the previous agent had it listed 70,000 higher than we had it listed because we did the desktop appraisal and the appraiser told us, here's your price point, right? I mean, within $10,000 one way or another, this is it. And the previous agent was $60,000 or $70,000 higher than that. And everybody was wondering, why am I not getting any showings? Well, because when you're 70,000 outside of the market, no agent wants to be known as that agent and putting in this what seems like a super lowball offer.
Ridiculous offer, yeah.
It's not a lowball offer. It's actually probably the right offer, but because the price is escalated so high and out of the realm of normal, you're not even going to get people that will make an offer. We've heard that so many times. Well, why won't somebody just make an offer? Well, because, nobody wants to be the agent who's the lowball agent.
Well, and I think it also speaks to expectations that may or may not have been set by an agent with their listing client.
Yeah.
So that's another piece to that puzzle.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So one of the last things we'll talk about is being nose blind as much as you are being eye blind to those things. So you talked about the red X phenomenon where you've got this horrible thing.
That's some thing that has been in the room forever and you don't see it anymore because it's just part of the landscape.
Right. So
Roomscape.
You can go nose blind as well. How does that work?
So nose blind can happen for a couple of reasons. One, because you are present. Again, you're present around it all the time, so you actually don't smell it anymore. You don't recognize it. Some people actually cannot smell very well, and so they're not even aware that there may be smells in their home that are maybe offensive or may, turn people away. Some of the odors that we experience the most in a home that are detrimental or reduce the chance of the house selling, animal, particularly dog odors.
Cat boxes.
Yeah. Sometimes, if there has been water issues, you may smell mold. Those are all things that need to be addressed and taken care of prior to listing, because those are things that are really going to deter buyers from wanting to get into your home.
But can't you just use a Glade plug-in to fix that?
Covering up doesn't necessarily work really well because buyers are pretty smart about stuff like that. And if you use a lot of smell goods around the house, the question in their mind is, what are they trying to cover up? So, I mean, it's a kind of a catch-22. I mean, you want it to smell nice, but don't do too much because it makes people wonder.
Well, and if you've got let's say, a heavy dog smell in the home, and you put the new maple vanilla scent, all you have is a maple vanilla dog. I mean, it's not like it
And
replaces
it's wet
the dog
too.
smell. Right. Yeah.
So
It's dog oil, and that oil, that smell can get not only on your furniture if you let your animals sit on the furniture, but it can also get into the carpet. So the fastest way to get rid of animal smells in your home is to have your carpets professionally cleaned, your upholstery professionally cleaned. And it may even mean where some pieces, if the animals live in that chair a lot, or there's dog beds, those pieces need to go. And it's amazing. Air the house out, get the carpet cleaned, get the upholstery cleaned, and all of a sudden it's not so heavy dog or heavy cat box or whatever. Now, if you have a cat and you have a litter box, please, when you're listing that house, it has got to be cleaned out every day. There's nothing nastier than walking in and having that horrible ammonia smell, right? And so, I mean, do you have cats or are you cooking meth? I mean, there's going to be something that creates that ammonia smell, right? So
and just to be clear, we have been dog and cat owners, so please don't think we're shaming the owners.
Oh no, we are totally pro animal, but we're also pro you selling your home.
Yeah, and so just things to be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. So the foul, and not only pets, but also food.
Oh yes.
Right? There are some people, and they will cook certain types of food all the time, right? So you get that person, and they love to fish. And man, I am warming up my tuna casserole in the microwave, and I'm walking out the door for my showing.
Oh.
Not a good idea, right? If you're going to do anything, bake some cookies, bake some bread, do something that smells amazing to everybody. I know.
That says welcome home.
Yes, yeah. Don't heat up your tilapia and then walk out the door so that your showing can show up. This is not a good way to do business, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. So it's not only just pets, but it's also food that can be a problem, and stuff that you're storing, right? If you're a heavy spice user, just be aware because people are going to be opening your cupboard doors in your kitchen. So just be aware that smells tend to hit people harder than anything, and it tends to be the thing that anchors a thought into their brain. So you got to
kind of like music that way.
Kind of like music that way, yeah. So I mean, there's a reason why when we do an open house, we're always baking cookies, or we're some of the more adventurous people, they've got a loaf of bread in the oven. That smell of warm and inviting makes people really start to consider this home as home when it smells good. So you got to worry about the animals, you got to worry about the food. Outside of that, anything in the smell category? How about plants outside? I'm thinking you line your front walkway with boxwood, and it smells like cat pee.
Oh, that's true.
Right? So you also have to be aware of what you're planting outside, right? You don't necessarily want to have bad smelling plants around, even though they get rid of aphids or they block this or block that, or the moles don't want to come in your yard. Be very careful about what you're doing on the outside, right? Neutral smelling stuff, no smell, right? There are some flowers that don't really have much of a scent. And there's plants that don't have a lot of a scent, but just be careful with the ones that do. And if you aren't sure if they do, feel free to ask somebody at your local garden center, right? So anything else that we need to pinpoint on before we wrap this thing up?
The only other thing that I would say is sometimes when you're getting your house ready to list, there may be some expenses that you didn't anticipate. And just for, for the people that we work with here at Realty One Group Pacifica, we have a program called House Amp. And that is a program that allows a homeowner to basically take money out against their house to do whatever work needs to be done, and then it gets paid off at closing. So it is a remarkable product.
Well, it's been a game changer for a lot of our
It
clients.
has been. It's allowed sellers to do a lot of amazing things that have actually allowed their home to sell for the maximum amount, which is always what we want for our clients.
So if you have a pre-inspection, for example, you have a home inspector come through and he says, the roof's shot, there's dry rot here, there's paint missing there, the water tank's leaking. It doesn't really matter what you need that money for. This program allows you to basically get a home equity line of credit that's paid off at closing, and not having to worry about trying to negotiate those repairs with the seller,
That could be huge.
who may want their roofer to come in, and their roofer is twice as expensive as your roofer is. So if you can deal with these things in advance, it's always better.
Always better.
Always better. So outside of that, we're done for the day. So feel free to subscribe to this channel. If you have questions, we would love to hear them, hear from you. So feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you more later.
Be sure to share.
All right. See you.